Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rakhma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
To the brightness within you, and the truth that is rooted within me.
Welcome to our show, MindShifters Radio. Thank you, Carol, for your wonderful process. That helped us to create MindShifters Radio. And if you're trying to get into the chat room, it's going to take a minute or two. We're actually on the road traveling. We're driving to Greensboro, North Carolina, and had a little difficulty finding a Wi-Fi spot. Just pulling up to somewhere that I think Jeanie will be able to get on so that the camera will be able to. Our apologies. Life on the road is sometimes built with all kinds of interesting challenges. So here we are. Start a workshop series in Greensboro, North Carolina on Sunday. We'll be at the Unity Church there in Greensboro. And if you want to get a flyer, you can go to our website, www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com. And on the website, you'll find a link that says download worksheets. And there's another link that says schedule. And that will put you onto our website. And on the right-hand side, there are links. And the first link, or it's not the first link, but there's a travel schedule link there. And you can click on that. And we'll start on Sunday afternoon at 1:15, if I recall correctly, doing Why Is This Happening to Me Again? It'll be a free open workshop. Monday night, we're going to do On Creating Consciously. We're going to skip Tuesday. Wednesday night, we're going to do a lesson from A Course in Miracles entitled, What is the World? And then on Thursday night, we'll do Healing Through Relationships. And Friday night, we'll complete the free series, with Codependence to Interdependence. So 7 to 9:30 each weekday evening. And then on Saturday, for those who wish to take things to the next level, we'll be doing MindShifters and Still Point Breathing starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. When we travel, that's the only workshop we do where we charge a fee. So if anybody's interested in doing that, I'll be available on my cell phone at 954-205-4996 if anybody's interested in registering for that. And we're honoring Memorial Day once again, and our invitation with our honoring of Memorial Day is an invitation that we choose to participate in ourselves and invite everyone who listens to the show to do on a daily basis, and that is to participate in the creation of a world that no longer has a need for war because people internally live in peace with themselves and therefore live in peace with each other. So our invitation is that you pick up the forgiveness tool. If there's an area in your life where you have some form of hostility or fear, that you choose to forgive that hostility or fear. And forgiveness doesn't have to do with letting other people off the hook because you have some sort of upset going on in you. Forgiveness has to do with changing the root of your upset. And so that technology is something that was disappeared from planet Earth, just about 2,000 years ago, shortly after it was first delivered. And we're working to restore that technology. The way that we're doing that is by traveling the globe, doing free workshops. Everywhere we're invited. If you want us in your city, invite us. We'd be glad to come. We'd be glad to be there, as we're going to be in Greensboro. And then we'll be touring Florida. So this winter, if you're somewhere in Florida, invite us. We'd love to come to your town and produce and present a whole series of workshops. So, Jeanie, are we successfully on the web? All right. So the chat room is up. And do we have any callers? Is David with us? Is Dr. Kim with us? Well, I guess we're on our own for now. So welcome to the show. And if you have any questions or thoughts for us, we would love to hear from you with your questions, with your thoughts. Our process is one of choosing to be responsible and teaching responsibility. You know, there are many people that say, well, the key to peace is a just world, to go for justice. And unfortunately, too often, the brain cells that go along with justice are brain cells of violence, brain cells of retribution, brain cells of getting even. And certainly a just world is appropriate. And sadly speaking, it is a just world, just the way it is right now. How do we figure that one out? Because most people violate themselves on a daily basis, and each time they violate themselves with some form of hostility or fear, they invite a violation from the external world. The ancients said, as above, so below. As in the internal world, so in the external world. They are reflections of each other. And so when I refuse to treat myself as a human being, and I refuse to treat myself lovingly, gently, and with respect, I will tend to draw someone to me who will also choose to treat me lovingly, gently, and with respect. Or perhaps they won't choose to, they'll decide to. And the difference between a choice and a decision is one is something that comes from automatic memory, that is decisions. We have a decision-making machine. It fires brain cells, and it says, here's what our family system does in this situation. We get frustrated, we get angry, we get sad, we get afraid, we get rageful, we manipulate, we beat up, we abuse. And if you do that, then you just set up an energy, literally a measurable energy field that will draw somebody to play that out and to do that with you. The solution I'd offer to a peaceful world, the way that we're going to move there, is not through justice, but rather through responsibility. When I take responsibility for what's happening inside of me, what's happening in my world between my ears, which is unique and individual to me, then I have the opportunity to change everything in my life. And what quantum physics is proving to us is that we are on the road to understanding how our creatorship works, how this process takes place. And when you recognize how creatorship works, then you get to the point where you teach yourself liberty and aliveness and joy with the same zeal that the world placed limits on you, with the same energy, with the same enthusiasm. And so we're heading to that level of enthusiasm. And, of course, the word comes from living in love, entheos, living in the Creator's energy, and claiming a human life. What is a human life? All you have to do is hold a newborn child, and you know exactly what a human life is. When you choose to be responsible and change what has been inherited through your body-mind unit that's based in hostility or fear, then all of a sudden you treat yourself honorably, you treat yourself respectfully. You refuse to engage in any form of hostility or fear. And if you find your automatic decision system forcing you into some form of hostility or fear, then you apply the tool of forgiveness. You remove that hostility and fear. And when you do, things start to change. It's the most amazing process. And, you know, that's the truth of the way life works. And the truth is not a very popular thing in our culture. I love what, who am I thinking of? Winston Churchill said, most people, if they bumped into truth on the street, would get up and brush themselves off and rush away. And truth is not only violated by falsehood. according to a gentleman named Henry Emile, it may be equally outraged by silence. When someone witnesses something that's out of harmony with truth, when someone is a participant in something that's out of harmony with truth, and they refuse to speak up, truth is as outraged as if they had lied. The refusal to tell the truth, the refusal to speak up. And so we're looking to create a world where we can speak up, and speak up lovingly, gently, respectfully, in the face of those things that are out of harmony with truth. If that makes sense to you, we'd love to hear from you. If you have a question about the forgiveness process, how do you change the contents of your mind, then please pick up the phone and call us, 646-200-4169. And I understand that Dr. Tim is with us. How are you this day, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Your last comments put me in mind of a story. There was a gentleman who found a large diamond on the side of the road, and he was of the Muslim faith and wanted to be in line with the laws. But he was very selfish. And the law stated that finders keepers only applied if you went to the marketplace and announced that you had found something 3 separate times on 3 separate occasions. So he waited until late at night and went to the market 3 nights in a row when he knew no one was there, and very quietly whispered that he had found a large diamond alongside the road, and no one was wiser, except on the 3rd night, someone was up and looking out their window and saw him mumble something, so they went out to him and said, "I saw you out here and saying something. I couldn't hear what you said. What were you saying?" And the gentleman said, "Well, that's none of your concern. All you need to know is I am here in the market to fulfill the letter of the law."
Yes.
And the moral of the story is, in order to be truly evil, you don't need to break the law, just fulfill it to the letter.
That's it. That's an awesome demonstration of that principle. And that's where I really like what Emile says, that truth is not only violated by falsehood, it may be equally outraged by silence. And if those who stand mute in the face of an atrocity would simply speak up, would simply do something different. There's a piece of research that we did when we were developing laws of living, and it came out of the Korean War and the prisoner of war camps there. And it was in those camps that the term brainwashing was coined. And then, remember, this is back in the early 50s. And in those camps, there were atrocities that happened between American soldiers that had never been seen in war before. And there was a particular psychologist who, who's studying this, wanted to know what happened, why, what was the deal here. And he researched, and as he researched, what he found was that the brainwashing that had happened had subtly put wedges. I conclude from listening to his testimony to Congress, his name was General Mayer, I conclude that they learned in those camps to implant a relationship virus, for want of a better term. And there was one particular case where there was a man who was tried for murder because in their little cabins that they were forced into, one man had dysentery, and one of the others didn't like the fact that his cabin smelled of dysentery. And there were 9 in the cabin, and he threw the man with dysentery out into the snow, and he froze to death. And when they asked the other 7 men, why didn't you do something? They all said it was none of their business. And that's just an unheard of thing in American soldiers in any war that's ever taken place. There has always been a camaraderie. Interestingly, when they liberated the camps, they were given free phone calls by the Red Cross to call home. And almost no one called a loved one at home, a child, a parent, a lover, a friend, a spouse. Almost no one called home, and they were given money to go into town to have liberty, and what they call liberty. And, of course, American soldiers are famous for getting their buddies together and going for beer. And almost nobody went to town, and the few that did went by themselves. It successfully implanted a way to separate people from each other. Interestingly, that brainwashing was done by graduates of American schools of social sciences. They're the ones who carried out the process. But if you look at how many times in the last few decades have you heard about an atrocity happening out on the street, a child being abused, an adult being beat up, murdered perhaps, while maybe dozens of onlookers who could have done something, who could have changed that dynamic, stood by and said, wasn't my business. And it is our business. When they say, they ask the question, are we our brother's keeper? Actually, that's kind of a misnomer to ask that question. We're not just our brother's keeper, we're our brother. What do you mean by that, Michael? Well, let's listen to Einstein. He says this: if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. The optical delusion of separateness has us do atrocities to ourselves with nothing more than the atrocity of silence. And that atrocity done to ourselves reflects out into the world as the atrocities done in the world. And of course, those who do atrocities, who engage in the energy of an atrocity, will hide from themselves the fact that they've done that to themselves. Well, how do you do it to yourself? All you have to do is commit an atrocity against another, and you've done it to yourself. And so, recognizing that, when we start to undo, that is, forgive the atrocities that we've done, the rages, the fears, the abuses that we've done individually and collectively, we're going to change the dynamic and come back to the realization of the actual truth. Truth is, there's only one of us. We're in this together. We can't escape from each other. And it's time for a wake-up. And it's going to take enthusiasm to go into your temple and remove what never belonged. In fact, Jeanie says we've got a caller. So let's welcome our caller. What area code? 607. Area code 607. Is Richard?
It's Richard. How is everybody?
And how do you be?
Actually, it's pretty good. I had I was listening in yesterday and heard you guys talking about nested energies and all that stuff, and wanted to get on yesterday, but unfortunately I had to leave for a dental appointment, so I didn't didn't get a chance to get on and talk. But I just wanted to share.
I hope everything went well with the dentist.
Pardon?
I say I hope everything went well with the dentist.
Yep, not a problem. But what I wanted to share with you guys was I had the wonderful opportunity over the weekend to participate in a Qigong workshop with a master from China.
Right.
And I had invited him to come and visit the lab where I work at Cornell, the high energy physics lab. And he came on Monday. I guess it was Monday or Tuesday it was. And during the video presentation, and I was obviously having to talk to him through an interpreter and everything, and I relayed to him about the idea that David Bohm had considered us basically frozen light, and he sort of all of a sudden perked up and he relayed his story from in the Masters in China, where I don't know if it was him or someone else had been asked to go meet with a master, and when he saw them, when the master left, he basically just disappeared in a rainbow of light. It was an interesting thing that he had talked about, and he also taught a really interesting pyramid meditation, and basically talked about nested pyramids with basically, our Tom 10, lower Tom 10 being the sun, and then the middle of Tom 10 being the moon, and then the upper Tom 10 being the stars, and five different pyramids, and eventually the largest pyramid being the universe. And of course, the sun being in your lower Don 10 being a star of the universe, so to speak. Anyway, it was interesting that you were talking about nested energies, and I just participated in this wonderful meditation, a pyramid meditation, and just thought I'd enjoy interjecting these two things that this master had shared with me, and thought it might be of interest to you or whatever.
Awesome. Well, I love to do the play on words with the word pyramid, because it means pyramid, to look within. And to me, that's the invitation of the pyramids. And it's interesting. I had someone call me back about a week and a half after the 9/11 event, and they had been listening to a tape that I had done about 10 years earlier, where I quoted that the pyramid had a system of markings on the floor that, if they were measured by what is called the pyramidal inch, basically gave the date of every significant event in history. And the final date that was marked on that walkway that led up to the King's Chamber, the last marking before you entered either and went up into the King's Chamber or went down into what they called the pit of unknowing, was September the 18th, 2001, 7 days after 9/11. And I think that humanity made the choice to go to the King's Chamber, made the choice to move upward as a result of that. I think that was the event. That was the last date that is indicated in that walkway toward the King's Chamber. And I think that as a whole, humanity made a choice to move upward. Yeah, there were some crazy components that went in another direction, but I think the shift in energy toward the upward motion, toward humanity recognizing our oneness, our connectedness, and what's really going on here, I think it was probably we made the right choice.
You just cut out, Michael.
Yep, I agree, Richard. He was here, and now he's not.
It was cutting in beforehand.
Yeah, there was a lot of static. So, Richard, where do you live and work?
I'm in Ithaca, New York, and I work at Cornell at the High Energy Physics Lab. And it was quite an interesting experience to take this gentleman on a tour along with, there was like five people, and four of them were Chinese, and the other one was just a person that had an interest in seeing the lab because she heard I was going to give the tour. So, but it was an interesting experience to take this gentleman through the lab and talk to him about modern day high energy physics and relay to him the concept of E equals MC squared and stuff like that, and everything being energy and just related through the speed of light. So it was interesting to, have that conversation with him and have the opportunity actually to give him the tour. I was real enthralled about doing it.
Well, it sounds wonderful. And as Michael was talking about, it's us as individual propagators of mind energy who collectively shift probably global events as well as the individual events in our lives, or what seem like individual events in our lives, by the choice of the focus of our conscious awareness. So when you're doing something like that, and these are fascinating meetings between scientists and philosophers and great meditators, and it reminds me of the talks between David Bohm and Krishnamurti. Are you familiar with those talks?
No, not at all.
Well, you can Google it, and you can, these days with YouTube, there are all kinds of wonderful things out there, but you know about the physicist David Bohm. Michael has quoted him a number of times within this past year, and there were some wonderful, basically private conversations that were videoed between David Bohm and Krishnamurti, because David recognized that what this spiritual teacher was discussing was essentially what they were discovering as they moved further and further into the exploration of what is matter and what is energy, and how does the mind energy interact with physical energy, what we call physical energy.
Right, correct. And and it was sort of interesting. One of his first questions to me was, are they exploring, the concepts of, Qigong, and I unfortunately had to tell him no. But that's one of the things that always has, sort of, I know that there are places that are exploring that. I know the Ion Center out in California, Institute of Noetic Sciences, is big on exploring that. And, of course, working with Michael is great because, he's really talking about this, too, and I really appreciate working with Michael and talking to him about this stuff.
Well, and from my perspective, the real value is, while scientists are developing ways to uncover the mechanisms behind ancient truths, tools like the ones Michael makes available on his website make those energies and those principles available to us as individuals, so that right now, today, tomorrow, the next day, I can improve my experience of life.
Exactly.
Using, accessing the power behind the principles. I don't need the multi-billion-dollar scanning devices that computer enhance the image of the electron microscopes to discover how it's actually happening. I can pick up this simple tool, and by using it with my own personal experience, writing down my thoughts and feelings and how I respond to a given set of situations inside me and outside me, I can access the power behind that principle to actually transform the quality of my life. And it's wonderful.
Amen.
And I hope people do keep discovering the technology behind it so that more and more people can be convinced to try it. But it's right here and it's available.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for picking up the call. My phone just disconnected out of blue. I don't know how long I was off or how long I talked before I discovered the phone was out. So, anyway.
Well, you were talking about the last step up to the pyramid and the September 18, 2011, and how that was the last date. leading to the higher consciousness or to the pit too. So you were, I assume from what you were talking about is the choice at this point as to whether we move to higher consciousness or move to the pit.
That's it, and actually it was 2001. It was 7 days after the 9/11 event, and my take is that we did, as a species, on an energetic level, choose to move to the higher level rather than to stay at the lower. Although there's lots of lower stuff happening and still happening, I think that the choice ultimately was made to make the move upward, and that's what we are here to support.
Great. And just so you know, you're still very faint in terms of volume when you're talking.
Is that any better now?
That's a lot better.
Okay, good. I'm just working with a new microphone. How is that? Is that any better there?
That's a little worse than where you just had it before.
Okay, good. I'm working with a new microphone, so I'm learning how to best use it.
Well, anyway,
Dr.
that's just what I wanted to share. So I'll see you guys later, and nice talking to you, and have a good day.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay, Richard. Blessings. Lots of love. David's with us? Good afternoon, David.
Good afternoon, Michael. Hello, Tim.
Hello, David.
Yeah, hear me? Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nice to hear Richard on there and coming from that new information. And I agree with you 100%, Tim, and that when we use the tools, then it opens up that place in order to have a better understanding of it, and through the experience of it, without less study of it, maybe, is a way of phrasing that. So it is about processing through.
Say it again, David. I couldn't quite catch you.
I was saying that it is about processing it through. My whole thing is when most people hear me, then I ask them, so the tools are introduced to you. Are you using the tools? Because there can be a lot of study of a lot of different things, and until there's the experience of that, from my perception of it is, then there's really no knowledge of it. Knowing and knowledge to me is a little bit different. It's kind of borderline, If I read a recipe of how to bake a cake, and then I can say, I know how to bake a cake, and then when I bake the cake, then I have the experience of it, and then I have knowledge of that, not just the knowing of it. And so to know it, I know I can go do these things. I know how this works. I know this. I know that. It's through the actual experience of doing that I obtain the knowledge of that and that whole experience of it, and so therefore there's never any question or doubt within myself about what is going on. I was sharing with Michael this morning, Tim, and for the rest of the audience as well. It was yet a pretty trying morning for me, and it's as though that I get to a place that I feel pretty calm and pretty understanding of this hope, what I'm experiencing and going through, and then all of a sudden there's another level that I had no idea about, and a tremendous amount of grief and sorrow and lots of tears, physical tears, that on a chemical space, as I said to Michael this morning, it really burns my skin. And I was thinking, everything is energy, and what is the difference between these tears that are coming out? And I've known through readings and hearing people talk about that when they do chemical makeup of a tear of one experiencing sorrow versus someone that like gets a little jab in the eye or a bug gets in the eye, that the chemistry of it is a lot different. And so I'm processing new layers. I'm recognizing that it's a new layer. I wasn't on the show a little bit earlier because I had stopped to breathe in order to allow that to process through. So, my encouragement is for everyone to apply the tools that, yes, Michael has made these available, so appreciative of it, and, to really support the movement, then it's about doing it differently. Risk, go there. Download a worksheet. Do a worksheet a day, just one worksheet a day. And that is that shifting of energy of these nested frequency. And I remember, Michael, you talking about the 9/11 and listening to the cassette. And incidentally, if people wanted to listen to that, whether they can get it, it's one of the Course in Miracles tapes that you did, and I've listened to that several times since then. And just to be able to be aware through the experience of, oh, that makes sense. So that's where I'm at today. Call in someone. That's really a challenge to call in and then question what it is that's being talked about, so that then there's a new knowledge of the information. So that's what I have.
Very cool. And one of the reasons we talked yesterday, part of the conversation was about the reason why people don't pick up the tools when they know that there's something else that can be done. The prejudices that we have, it's kind of like so many people are embalmed in prejudice that they can't move out of it. They're immobilized by it. And the hostility, the fear, the worry, the vengeance that the world has taught us will enhance our day is all a fraud and it's all a lie. Each of those things is like a chemical demon within us that defiles perception. It leads to poor choices, or actually poor decisions, and it really empties us of the strength and the vitality of the day at hand. And it transports us back to other days where hostility and fear occurred. And it's just time for that stuff to be gone and our birthright as human beings to be restored. And that's what our whole process is about. And if you'd like to ask a question about forgiveness or any of the tools we're teaching, responsibility, communication, codependence to interdependence, healing through relationships, empowered to heal, purpose, personal power, and commitment, permanent beatitudes, we'd love to hear from you. And Jeanie tells me that we have a caller. Actually, we've got a couple of callers, so we'll take the first one in line, and then we'll be right with the second caller. Area code? 941. Sounds like Sarasota territory. 941.
Yes, hi. Yes, hello, Michael. Hello, David. Hello, Tim. Thank you for
hello, Marie.
Yes, it's Marie. I'm listening to your show. Thank you for everything you're doing for us. And I'm listening to David and then listening to him talking about tears. And it is so awesome, the meeting of great minds, because this morning I was doing some process myself. And the question I was asking to me was, when is it going to be the day that I will be able to shed tears? Because I know my intuitive development that I fine-tuned with one of your, the last intensive that I was at Heartland, showed me a lot of things are validated, a lot of things for me. And I know in my fabric of myself that tears will be the release of a lot of locked up negative energy or disintegrative energy that I have in my system. And I'm listening to David, who actually to me, seems to be a little appalled by the fact that he's shedding tears. And David, if you're there still on the call, I can tell you I don't know what I would pay to have tears, because I know this is what actually will release a lot of disintegrative energy that I have built up in my energy system that will also build my strength and vitality. And I do embrace the day that this process will be ongoing for me, because I will know at that time that I will be in a real healing process. So it comes back to reality. I don't know how to articulate that properly, but what seems to be a demise for you is actually something that I would celebrate for me, about the chemical makeup of tears. Although I know that once it happens, it's not a doctor feel-good process, but hey, you're just softening the crystals that you of anything that you built up in your system, and it's now releasing. It's a beautiful process, and I kind of envy the day that I can be there myself, and that's what I had to share.
Well, Marie, we certainly support you in getting to the point where you can open to that level of feeling. And actually, in my conversation with David this morning, it was in celebration that he was in touch with a very deep level of many, many, many spontaneous tears. It was with gratitude. And, one of the things that he shared with me was that like he could feel the pain and the movement of energy from parents and grandparents. He was opening the space for all of them to move that energy.
You're right. When I move that energy, it's not a good feeling, because it taps into everything that was actually the makeup of why it was there. And I do celebrate with him and support everybody that goes through a healing process. It's not an easy job. It takes a lot of courage, and I really honored that in David and everybody. And I wish upon myself that I will get there soon enough to appreciate it. So.
Well, we hold the space for sure.
Thank you very much.
And honor the level of your commitment at going for it. It's awesome.
Yes, when it softens, it can be a little bit of a confusion. In my case, it is confusion as to, am I in the right direction, or it is just like dwelling in a place where I don't want to dwell. And then I go back to what you're saying all the time about the healing crisis process. Have I done the right thing lately? Have I, opened the channel of elimination? And it's going to basically, I'm going to feel everything that I felt that locked in this process that was disintegrative, and then I will be tempted to go back to where I was before, where I think I was feeling better, which I was not, obviously. And when I tap into these 4 steps and I look at it and I say, well, yeah, I'm in a healing crisis. Great. Yay.
Yes, and as you recall, one of the symptoms of healing on a mental level is confusion. And the reason for that is because the fact that we are energetic beings. If I were to shine a whiteboard and I shone a red light, a blue light, and a green light, each beside the other, we would have clarity in each of those frequencies. We know there's no such thing as color, that red is a particular frequency that the brain interprets as red, and people who are colorblind have brains that interpret differently, and blue is another frequency that the brain interprets as blue, and green, and et cetera. But if I were to shine all 3 of those lights on the same spot, because those energies, those frequencies are additive and subtractive, they would end up with some confused mix of red, blue, and green. We wouldn't see clarity of any one of the three. In exactly the same way, our thinking process is frequency-based, just like the light is frequency-based. And when we have clarity about, it's their fault and they did it to me and I'm only in pain because of them and I'm in my rage, which means I'm anesthetizing myself against my self-induced pain, I can have clarity on that. But when I start to build brain cells for truth and I start remembering that, oh, yeah, I have been through this 87 different times, and I am the one who is there every time. Wow, that's confusing. How can I keep blaming them when I realize that this is my doing? And the whole process is one of waking up to truth. And confusion is a big part of the process because those old thoughts that we're uncovering, that are letting go, that as David was talking about, that the chemicals are so toxic, the toxicity that he's letting go of from the generations is actually producing a burning sensation on his skin from these tears. And what that says to me is that he's working through the depth of issue that is monumental. And David, I suspect that probably in the process there was probably a little confusion that surfaced. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, very accurate to say, and I'm glad you're on, Marie. I know that you and I have called each other a couple of times and haven't connected, and it's nice to have the show in order to communicate about this. And one thing that part of the confusion, as you refer to, is my mind coming up with, well, I should be through with this and come on and let's get on with life and let's go on. And I was speaking with one of Ryan's dear friends this morning, and there's a lot of activity, doing physical things and material things out there, which is fine. And at the same time, for me, the most important part is to process through the emotional baggage that gets carried, and what is opening the space for that. I shared with Michael this morning I've begun journaling about this, and I've committed to journal each day, and amazingly, as I'm journaling, the tears are flowing down my face, and I'm still writing, and I associated that with doing the still point breathing, that as I tap into something, then I'm able then to stay with the breath, and though that the tears are flowing, the drama and the trauma that's connected with that is released. And so through this journaling, and I continued to journal, and all the time I was continue to journal, there's a voice in my head telling me to stop, and, this is that, and just to stay with that. When you mentioned, Marie, about that you look forward to that, I assure you, from my projection of it, we do get what it is that we ask for. So it is on its way. And I, like Michael, acknowledge and appreciate your willingness, your level of willingness, and consistency in doing the work daily will open that space for it to happen. There are lots of us, and everyone is on their path doing it at whatever pace that they choose to do it at, that by doing that, I think that on a collective level, it opens up space for more and more people, whether they are conscious of it or unconscious of it. It's irrelevant. And that's my purpose in being here in Louisville and creating a space for my family and my grandson and for my daughter-in-law and for everyone that's connected with this to be able to process through it. That's really what it's about. So you have my support, Marie, and everyone, whether they're in their process of doing it or considering doing it. I'm going to keep doing my work. I know Michael is going to keep doing his, Marie, and everyone that's listening. When we do that, then we add energy for each and every one of us in order to reach that level with it on a connected basis. So thank you, guys. Thank you, audience, for I could not have done this and processed through this morning without this energetic support that's coming from everywhere, that's everyone that's involved in doing good work.
That's the thank you so much, David. That's the beauty of connectiveness. Is like where you are weaker, we're stronger. When we're weaker, you're stronger, and so on and so forth. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty also of MindShifter. That's the beauty of forgiveness. Because when you peel off all these layers, all there is remaining is love, and that's where we need to dwell on. That's where we are dwelling on. That's our fabric. That's what we're made of. We just added layers of years upon years, and the removal of this process of removal can be a little painful. But in the end, what I feel is like I embrace the process, and now I know better, so I do better. And I know that I'm in a healing process, so I'm heading towards the good part of how I want my life to feel and be an experience, and so on and so forth. Thank you, David.
Awesome.
Thank you, Michael.
Awesome. And David, with what? Go ahead, David. Do you have something else to say to Marie?
No, I'm good.
No, I was thanking Marie. That's all. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was going to point out is how powerfully you're listening to the voice of being and the voice of sanity in what's taking place. It's been a while since we've mentioned on the show what you're doing in Louisville. For those who are new to the show, David Hayes is the property manager of Heartland. And about 3.5 weeks ago, David got a call on a Sunday morning, and his 37-year-old son had died. And I know, David, in the ups and downs we've been through in the last 3.5 or so weeks, the number of voices that would advise you, both externally in the family system, as you shared, one close family member came forward with, well, he made his choices, and so let's move on. We just have to go on with our lives. And rather than buying that voice, then another voice wanted to go get a gun, blame somebody, and kill somebody over it. And another voice wanted to rage, and sometimes your inner voice came up with wanting to rage, and journal guidance. And to recognize that in order for we as human beings to act, we have to select the voice to listen to. We have to surrender to something. And, maybe, David, with what all has happened in the last few weeks for you, you might share, if it's appropriate, a few of what those voices have advised you to do. And I just so powerfully acknowledge you with the fact that when you were ready to fall into the hole of one of those voices based in hostility or fear, that instead of doing that and destroying yourself, you have chosen to keep coming back to the higher voice, to the voice for love. And that when it was difficult for you to do that, you'd pick up the phone and you'd be on the phone and breathing and processing through those lower voices that exist in all of us. Every one of us has been born and bred in this world with the rages, the fears, the griefs, and the pains of the world. And if we listen to those voices, then we'll create a certain quality of life. And if you look around at the way our culture functions, as I said earlier, embalmed in prejudice, the prejudice being, if this situation happens, I rage. If this situation happens, I terrorize. If this situation happens, I self-abuse. If this situation happens, I abuse others. They're all voices in all of our heads. Or as that story that Tim shared about the man who went to the marketplace. While he fulfilled the letter of the law, he listened to a voice of selfishness. And to be willing to make a commitment, and it is a huge commitment, to surrender only to one voice, and that is the voice of being, the voice of the active presence of love, that our true nature is that of love. And David, the huge piece of service that you are doing for your family system, and as the Course in Miracles says, millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do. The change that you're making by selecting, by choosing, rather than deciding to go with some old hostility or fear or some old family way of dealing with things, that you choose consistently, daily. And I know from sometime minute to minute, maybe several times in a minute, to keep moving to the higher space, into the space of love, that you're changing some powerful stuff on our planet.
Thank you, Michael. It's it's thank you. It is about doing it daily. It is about beginning. There's philosophers and statements. It begins with the first step, yes, and then it's another step, and then it's another step, and then it's another step. And this morning, I think it might have been what you were referring to this morning. I mean, I was just ready, the hell with all of this, and you had called a couple of times, and the voices in my head was, just stop, David, this is enough. And I know through enough times and with enough support from other people that the time to call is the time that I'm resistant to call, that the time to connect with that love is when the voice says, that's enough, quit, stop. And for whatever reason, I had, it's just the consistency of it. It is the consistency to begin and to stay with it every single day. Sometimes it is, minute to minute. And I think it's become minute to minute for me with this major piece of it. And I've been doing this for a number of years. The mind always wants to come up with, haven't I done enough? As soon as I hear that now, right. I've heard it enough in my head that it's like, oh, okay, well, that's just another one of those voices. It's just another program. It's just pressing something else, another voice. I like what Fred Allen Wolf said. That
down to about 30 seconds, David.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Michael. And we'll talk about this some more on Monday if people want to.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. So go ahead.
And so just to complete the ideas that we're speaking of from a healing point of view, the voice you speak with tells which voice you have surrendered to. And be careful, because if you surrender to that which you hate, you become that which you hate. When you surrender to that which you love, you become the active presence of love. And in so doing, you will create the best year yet of your eternal life. And we're glad to be here to support you in doing it. Bring a stranger to the show on Monday. And have a blessed weekend.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.